Good afternoon, one and all, and congratulations to the newly minted, yes, the newly elected executive officers of the General Employees Association. Thank you for joining this presentation that's been done by yours truly, College Views. Today I'm tasked with educating you on the following key points as it relates to collective bargaining. These key points are the ILO conventions relevant to collective bargaining, strategies, forcing, fostering, or a combination, the objective criteria and negotiating team preparation, and the grievance procedure in contract administration. My hope is that having completed this presentation, you'll have a deep appreciation for these topics and collective bargaining in general, which will keep you in good stead during your tenure as the executive and your work life. Well, what is collective bargaining? A brief history will tell us that Beatrice Webb can be credited as the person to first use this term, collective bargaining. This term was first used in 1891. Collective bargaining existed before the end of the 18th century in Britain. Collective bargaining can be defined as many things. However, one abbreviation that stands out is given by Robert L. Morris in his article entitled New Issues in Collective Bargaining, a Caribbean Workers' Education Guide. And Robert L. Morris defines collective bargaining this way. Collective bargaining is a means whereby trade unions representing workers and employees through the representatives treat and negotiate with a view to the conclusion of a collective agreement or renewal thereof, or the resolution of disputes. One thing that stands out here, it speaks of renewal. And you being a newly elected executive means that you'll have to go back, research, because you would not have been there. Renewal means something that exists or existed, right? So that's what you renew, something that exists or existed. What should be noted also is that a collective agreement is usually an agreement in writing between an employer and the union on behalf of workers employed by the employer. It contains provisions reflecting terms and conditions of employment of the workers and conferring to them these rights, privileges, and responsibilities. What stands out here and should be noted is that the workers have rights that management or the employer should recognize, respect, and uphold. The workers have privileges that they should live out during their tenure of work. However, they also have responsibilities that they should uphold and adhere to so they can have a good relation with management. Michael Salmon also defines collective bargaining, and his definition can be found in Industrial Relations Practice, 4th edition, page 323. And he posited collective bargaining in this way. Collective bargaining is a method of determining terms of employment and regulating the employment relationship, which utilizes the process of negotiation between representatives of management and employees and results in an agreement which may be applied uniformly across a group of employees. Now, uniformly across a group of employees implies that it speaks to employees that are unionized, but they fall in different parts of the scale. So you have a scale with technicians, clerical staff, janitorial staff. They're all unionized employees. However, they don't all fall at one point in the scale. But when negotiation is being done on their behalf, it's done uniformly. So everybody, with respect to their scale, moves incrementally in a fair manner. So therefore, if we all have to move 2 steps or 2 increments along the scale, everybody moves 2 steps. However, the salary scale or the salary structure for the technical staff as against the clerical staff differs, but everybody moves incrementally. ILO conventions relevant to collective bargaining. This is one of the key points we need to look at. And one of the things the ILO convention, ILO have done, International Labour Organization, is that there are 3 main conventions that have been ratified, and legislative and institution framework that supports collective bargaining have been developed for these 3 main conventions. Convention number 87, which concerns the freedom of association and protection of the right to organize. Convention number 98, which stands out most of all, concerns the application of the principles of the right to organize and bargain collectively. And Convention number 151 concerns the protection of the right to organize and procedures for determining conditions of employment in the public sector. Now, Convention 87 speaks to the freedom of association and protection of the right to organize, which means individuals can come together, join and form unions or associations. And at this point, they can vent or among themselves vent their frustration, vent their concerns, and so forth. And from this, what can happen is that decisions can be made for these concerns to be brought to management, for these individuals who are uncomfortable in some way, for their concerns, for them to be represented. These are the rights what these conventions give to the individual. So Convention number 98 speaks to the principles of the right to organize. So the right of 87 tells you the right to the freedom of association. So you come together, you organize, and then because you organize, you can bargain collectively, not individually but collectively, which is more beneficial for all and sundry. Forcing and fostering, which is another principle in collective bargaining. Now, forcing and fostering really occurs when workers and trade unions are compelled by management, by the worker, to change or to accept change. Being compelled by management means some threat usually is put forward. Maybe the threat of closure, maybe the threat of dismissal, the threat of demotion, right? Threat of squeezing or doing things that will affect a significant portion of the unionized members, right? So these are threats that usually are meted out by management. But in relation to this, in Guyana, the largest employer, the government, and the Guyana Teachers Trade Union, the Guyana Trade Teachers Union, they're at loggerheads right now. And what the government has forced on them is that since 2019, the government has failed to engage the union in collective bargaining on behalf of the teachers. The teachers would have approached and written to every department, following the protocol, every department right up to the president of the nation. The executive president, written to him, all to no avail. Nobody responded. The teachers decided to strike, and the employer, the government, decided to this government says they're gonna stop their agency dues, stop paying it, stop deducting it, which is a form of union busting. The government knows that Guyana, even though it is small, it is still large and encompasses 83,000 square miles, and we have teachers in far-flung areas. We can describe it as teachers being behind God's back. These teachers, logistically, it would be very challenging for them to get the union dues in on time, in a timely manner. And just as taxes, the paying of tax, the implementation of taxes is the bloodline for an economy, a country's economy, the same way union dues is one of the bloodline for unions. And with the government threatening to do this, it means they're really challenging, they want to break up the union. Fortunately, it has reached the courts, and the learned judge that the matter was presented to, he adjudicated resoundingly in favor of the union. He even said that the union reached out its hand for bread and was given stones instead. What an analogy. Fostering, on the other hand, is trying to gain support for change. Usually it occurs when the management or the employer and their worker union collaborate in order to accomplish something. Another example of this from Guyana is that the Public Utilities Commission, PUC of Guyana, they're the watchdog for all public utility companies like the telephone company, the electrical company, the water company. So it so happened that the telephone company, GTT, had a hearing that could have gone in a negative way with the PUC. So the union, the company reached out to the union, and the union reached out to its members. So what happened is that the members of the union congregated on the corridors of the court while the case was being heard. When the management saw the presence of the workers, the members of the union, they were overwhelmed. I think it even made an impression on the case, and it could have been viewed like this. These are a lot of persons were there, and exponentially these people represent families, friends, and so forth. So you can see what collaboration can do. Collective bargaining is very important because it improves wages and working conditions, as well as promotes equality among the participants. It provides a stage for both parties, management and workers, to stand on the same level at the negotiation table. It is influential in ensuring the adaptability of the companies and economies during the economic crisis. It also benefits stability and productivity in labor relations, among other things. Now, the objective criteria. Objective criteria is very essential when it comes to collective bargaining. Objective criteria demands, or it speaks to the individuals being free of emotion, being free of bias, being free of influences, either internal or external. And a good typical example is if the management is at point A and the union is at point C. Point B is where the difference lies. Management might want the entire B for themselves, whereby the union is asking for 1/3 of B to be in the worker's domain. 2/3 would be management's domain, but management needs the entire thing. One way of looking at objective criteria is if two siblings have a cake to be divided. If one sibling cuts the cake, the other one gets to choose before the one that cuts the cake. So if the cake is not cut in an equal manner, in a fair manner, when the sibling that has a choice to chooses, the one that cuts the cake will be kind of disgruntled. So it means that the one that is cutting the cake needs to do it in a fair manner so that when the time comes to choose, what is given to both parties would be deemed as fair. Likewise, when you have to negotiate or you have to deal with an issue, what is presented holistically must be presented in a fair manner. So when it's presented and the other party has to choose, when they choose, what remains for the person that presented, it would be fair. It would not be lopsided in any way. So collective objective criteria speaks to setting fair standards, right? And it also speaks to having fair procedures. So what is done, the standards are above board. The standards are there whereby other entities can use it. So for instance, the standards should reach market value, should be precedents that have been set. So you do things that have already been done. So you can use that as a gauge. This was done so you can use the same model. Professional standards that are there that can withstand scrutiny, right? Moral standards, scientific judgments, these are things that should be used when trying to come to an agreement. If there's a disagreement, you use these standards to appease the situation. So everybody uses this that have been proven to work in the past, that was being accepted by society. So as we choose it, both parties would feel some semblance of comfort. Not saying that, listen, you chose something that benefits you alone. You choose something that is a precedent that was used before and persons saw it as fair. Now, preparations for negotiating. There are 8 steps that the union, the new elected body, executive body should use. These 8 steps you should use. These steps are preparing, arguing, signaling, proposing, packaging, bargaining, closing, and agreeing. These steps you need to use in preparation for negotiation, and if you need to have a favorable outcome. Now, in preparation, you need to think outside of the box. We need to think holistically, not just for you, the union. You need to understand that the union is in competition, firstly, with other businesses right within Trinidad and Tobago that will be selling the same product. If it's a product of service, if it's a product of a good, you need to be cognizant of that. And because you're cognizant of that, you need to understand that what you're selling today, you may have a market, but tomorrow the market can go to a next vendor. Likewise, from a territorial standpoint, today you can be exporting to Guyana, but tomorrow Guyana turns you down and take the product from Barbados instead. You need to be cognizant of that. And we can look at it globally. You have to compete against many other businesses from other countries. So in preparation, looking at that, we need to understand that we have to examine the macroeconomic factor, whereby we have CSME, free trade of the Americas. We have internally, we have things such as we have to look at the profit and loss statements, the balance sheets of the organization, company's budget and strategic plans. These are things we have to look at to have a semblance, to have an idea of what we want to, when we're preparing to negotiate, what we want to put forward, something that is fair, something that can withstand scrutiny, something that is good, and it has more than it's also it's good. And now in arguing, what we put forward, we must be able to represent by arguing not in a disruptive manner, but rather it must be persuasive. In order to win over, you must do so rationally, and you must be reasonable, and the information we putting forward must be reliable. When we're arguing in negotiation, we're not discussing, we're not consulting, but we're being persuasive with respect to our points, what we want to get over. Signaling is body language. We can signal also through our words, whereby the members of our team, we can be scouting, we can be observing management to see exactly what is it they're doing. So from signaling and so on, we can come up with ideas so that when we're ready to propose, based on the signals you would have read, we know what we can prioritize when we're proposing, and we're certain there's a higher percentage that our proposal will be successful because of the signals we would have received. When we're ready to propose, we can propose properly. Now our proposals will be packaged in such a way that based on our signals that we receive, the main things will be trusted, will be put in front, and it will be surrounded by other things. So we give them a total package whereby all the elements that will be crucial to us will be submitted. Bargaining, we have to be cognizant that we are not the only one there. We have things we want to get passed. We want things the management must approve. However, management on the other hand has things that they want to be discontinued or to pass. So we have to be wary of that. We have to understand that both sides are trying to outwit the other with respect to what they have. And in bargaining, sometimes what can happen is that the persons that are taking the minutes, we can ask them to stop writing, and we can probably try to trash it out. And if that doesn't work, then we go back to the correct way of doing things. And in closing, we need to make sure that everything that you would have asked for or writing is not ambiguous and so forth. We have everything tied down to what is it we want to get done, what we're asking for. And then we send a draft showing we have agreed and both parties sign off on it. Now we come to grievance, the grievance procedure. The grievance procedure states in the newest use in collective bargaining, the definition states grievances as defined as breaches of the collective agreement, customs and practice, the statute law, common law, natural justice, or any problem of a sufficient nature to cause disturbance of the workplace balance. There are many causes to grievances, right? Major causes of grievances have been discovered to be what? Loose, faulty, or ambiguous contract language. We have to be careful when we tying up these agreements because that can bring a grievance. Management strategy to undermine the union, right? Historical factors, faulty systems. These are some reasons for grievances. And grievances can be investigated. When we investigate grievances, we have some W's we can ask about. We can check 5 W's. Who were involved? When did the breach occur? Why did the breach occur? Where did the breach occur? And what happened? These questions, when answered, can give us some semblance of what exactly happened, right? And there's a grievance handling procedure, right? The person aggrieved raises the issue with the immediate supervisor. Failing settlement, the matter is referred to a manager. Failing settlement, the aggrieved workers can refer the issue to the shop steward. The shop steward or delegate can enter the case and request a meeting with the manager or someone from the personnel or human resource department. Failing the above, a senior trade union official can intervene. Failure at the domestic level can lead to a third-party intervention. Example, Employees Federation or the Industrial Tribunal's case. My time is up. I thank you for listening, and I want to congratulate the newly installed executive, and I want to leave one word of wisdom to you. You learned to read in your early days. Now you're reading to learn. You need to read and read and read. Thank you for listening.